What happened after liberation?
Well, right after liberation, of course, meaning well, all the stockpiles of food were broken into. I guess the Germans even the Americans were handing out, handing out food to us, and they were giving us. I remember they gave me a can of Spam, about a 2-pound can of Spam. Between me and my cousin, we ate this, and obviously we got very sick, dysentery, and many of the people afterwards were dying from this illness and other illnesses, accumulation of all of these problems. But my cousin passed away about 2 days later, and I was not able to move anymore. I remember that a group of nuns and priests came into the camp. They were French priests and nuns, and they opened up like a hospital, a field hospital there right in the camp. And one particular priest, he was a young Polish man. He spoke Polish to me, and he picked me up and took me on his shoulders and carried me into the infirmary. And in there, of course, they started caring for me, and they gave me intravenous, because I couldn't eat anymore at that point. He was exceptionally a nice person, and he was telling me I should be very proud of my heritage and never to forget that I'm Jewish. And this was from a Catholic priest. I'll never forget him. But he was carrying me on his shoulders practically wherever I had to go. He was always there helping me and others. And there were a lot of them, very nice people. They really, actually dedicated their whole life to helping after they've seen what's happened there, to helping us people. So after a while, I came back to myself, and I started to recuperate. And from there, they sent me out to a place in Bavaria, a place called St. Ottilien. It used to be a cloister. What happened is the church or the priest, they gave up one section of the cloister to help repatriate and to bring to health, for some of these people who left the camps. And they made it like into a hospital. So that's where I was shipped, and I was there for quite a while. Things were nice there. They were, of course, feeding us well and bring us back to health.
You have any idea how long you were there?
My guess would be probably about 4 or 5 months. It took about that long. And while I was there, of course, we lost all hope, but we were free people, and we had to sort of concern ourselves what's going to be the future. To us, at that point, at least myself, I didn't think that far. I couldn't even fathom what kind of a future I could have. But I do remember that one morning I heard a group of youngsters come in the camp singing into that St. Ottilien. That a group of youngsters came in singing, and they were singing Yiddish songs, Signish Kemel as the Geist and Letzten Bag. They were singing Hevenu Shalom Aleichem, and all these Jewish songs, and all of a sudden things started coming back to me, and I ran out. I says, "Who are you? Where are you?" So I see all of these kids, and they were dressed in uniforms, very nicely dressed in blue and white uniforms, and they tell me that they belong to they're chalutzim, that they belong to a certain group, a kibbutz, and it's called Hashomer Hatzair. I didn't know, this was news to me. I didn't know who Hashomer Hatzair is or who this group this was. They were telling me about their Zionists and what their aim in life is bring back in Israel, in Eretz Israel. And a lot of this made a lot of sense to me. And at that point I decided I'll join them. So I joined them and I made friends and I became part of this group and we sort of started training and all so on. Want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Anyway, I stayed with this group and I was trained to become a soldier when we eventually free Palestine. So they were not actually trained with arms at first. They were just introducing us on paper, all these things, and telling us about Israel and telling us in a way that they felt that perhaps to some degrees our parents were at fault because they would never allow us to think about Zionism and they would never allow us to go towards an Israel. They were too orthodox and they didn't believe this. And but now this is a new era, and they are. There's only one thing that the Jewish person could possibly think of, and that is the rebirth of Israel, and do everything humanly possible to do that. And every Jew had an obligation. This is our only call in life right now, is to bring Israel back to Judaism. Anyway, I went with this group and I became involved more and more. And eventually they brought me up to a little higher rank in the group. I became a little madrich, what they call it, a little teacher. And they assigned me, they chose a few of the people from this whole kibbutz that will be the first Aliyah bet going into Israel. So they chose me, and it was a big honor to be chosen for that. They chose me with about another 10 from our kibbutz to be the first ones to go to Israel. That was Aliyah bet. It was underground at the time. So to continue, one of the chaveras, from our group, who was also going to go on the trip with us, took ill just before we left, about 2 or 3 days before we left. So when she took ill, they took her to that Santertillion, to the same place where I used to be. But at this point, I was already in Feldafing with the rest of the chalutzim and the kibbutz. That was not too far away from there. But before we went on the trip, I went to the Santertillion to say goodbye to this Chavera who couldn't make it because she was ill. And I remember I was there for a couple hours because we were waiting for transportation to go back to the kibbutz. And it took about 2 hours to wait till the new bus came out. So I was there sitting on her bed, myself and another friend of mine, and we were bidding her farewell. Well, we'll see you in Israel soon. And after a while, we left. The reason I'm pointing this out, because we'll come back to that later, what happened while I was there. We left, I went back to the kibbutz, and it didn't take long. We started on our way to Israel. First, we went on a trip. They took us to Frankfurt am Main, and it was done in hush-hush, in an underground way. I was there in Frankfurt a couple days, and afterwards we were supposed to be leaving for Marseille, and from there we were supposed to be boarded on board a ship. But I'll go into another section right now, a situation with my sister.